Have you ever felt like you were in the right place at the right time, but for all the wrong reasons? Imagine this. You've been chosen to live in a magnificent royal palace, a life of luxury beyond your wildest dreams. But then, a shadow falls. You discover that your entire community, the people you love, are facing an unimaginable threat, and you might be the only one who can save them. This isn't a fantasy novel. This is the true story of Esther, a young woman whose courage echoed through history. Our story begins in ancient Persia, a vast and powerful empire. Here we meet a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, better known by her Persian name, Esther. Orphaned as a child, she was lovingly raised by her older cousin, Mordecai. Life was simple until one day, everything changed. The powerful King Xerxes was looking for a new queen, and a decree was sent out to gather the most beautiful young women in the kingdom. Esther, with her remarkable grace and beauty, was among those chosen. Imagine the mix of excitement and fear she must have felt, being taken from her quiet life and thrust into the heart of the Persian court. Following Mordecai's wise counsel, Esther made a critical decision. She would not reveal her Jewish heritage. This was a dangerous secret to keep in a place filled with political intrigue and hidden agendas. For a time, she lived in the palace, learning the ways of the court, unaware that her position was about to become the single most important lifeline for her entire people. She eventually won the king's favor and was crowned the new queen of Persia. But her true test was yet to come. In the king's court, power corrupts, and a man named Haman had risen to become the king's most trusted advisor. Haman was a man consumed by pride and a deep, irrational hatred for the Jewish people, specifically targeting Esther's cousin Mordecai, who refused to bow down to him. This personal vendetta spiraled into a genocidal plot. Haman went to King Xerxes, lied, and manipulated him, convincing the king to sign a decree ordering the complete annihilation of all Jews throughout the Persian Empire on a specific day. The decree was sealed with the king's ring, making it irreversible. When news of this terrifying edict reached Mordecai, he was devastated. He tore his clothes and mourned publicly, a sign of deep grief and despair. He knew there was only one person who might be able to stop this catastrophe: Queen Esther. He sent a message to her, urging her to go before the king and plead for her people. But this was not a simple request. In the Persian court, there was a strict law. Anyone who approached the king in his inner court without being summoned would be put to death unless the king extended his golden scepter. Esther hadn't been called to see the king in 30 days. To go to him uninvited was to risk her own life. She was terrified, and who could blame her? She sent a message back to Mordecai, reminding him of the law. But Mordecai's reply was powerful and direct. He told her not to think for a moment that her position in the palace would save her. If she remained silent, deliverance for the Jews would arise from another place, but she and her family would perish. And then he spoke the words that would change everything, words that have inspired people for centuries. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Those words struck a chord deep within Esther. She realized her life, her position, her entire journey had led to this one pivotal moment. This was her purpose. Her fear gave way to resolve. She made a decision to risk everything. She sent a final message back to Mordecai, instructing him to gather all the Jews in the city of Susa. "Fast for me," she said. "Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do." It was a call for spiritual reinforcement, a plea for divine help in a seemingly impossible situation. And then she declared her unshakable commitment. "When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." After 3 days of fasting and prayer, the moment of truth arrived. Esther put on her finest royal robes, her heart likely pounding in her chest. She walked through the palace and stood in the inner court, directly in front of the king's throne. She waited. The king saw her standing there, Would he be angry? Would he condemn her? In a moment of divine favor, the king was pleased to see her. He held out the golden scepter. Esther approached and touched the tip of it, her life spared. The king, seeing her, asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom it will be given to you." But Esther was wise. She didn't blurt out her request right away. Instead, she played the long game. She had a plan. She simply invited the king and his advisor, Haman, to a private banquet she had prepared for them. Haman was overjoyed, puffed up with pride to be singled out for such an honor alongside the king. He left the banquet feeling on top of the world, but his joy turned to rage when he saw Mordecai at the palace gate, once again refusing to bow. That night, fueled by his hatred, Haman had a massive gallows built, intending to ask the king the very next morning for permission to hang Mordecai on it. But God was at work behind the scenes. That same night, King Xerxes couldn't sleep. He asked for the official records of his reign to be read to him, and he was reminded of a time when Mordecai had uncovered a plot to assassinate him, saving his life. The king asked, "What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this?" His attendants replied, "Nothing has been done for him." At that very moment, Haman entered the court, ready to ask for Mordecai's execution. Before Haman could speak, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman, in his arrogance, assumed the king was talking about him. So he described a lavish ceremony, dressing the man in the king's own robes, placing him on the king's horse, and having a noble prince lead him through the city streets, proclaiming, "This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor." The king's response must have been a shock. "Go at once," he commanded Haman. "Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew." Haman was forced to publicly honor the very man he despised. Later that day, at Esther's second banquet, the king again asked her for her request. This time, she was ready. With immense courage, she spoke. "If I have found favor in your eyes, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king was stunned. "Who is he?" he demanded. "Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" And Esther looked directly at Haman and said, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." The king flew into a rage. The truth was revealed. Haman's plot was not just against some faceless group of people. It was against the queen herself. In a swift turn of events, Haman's evil plan was completely overturned. He was taken away and executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. Justice was swift and absolute. But the story doesn't end there. The king's original decree to destroy the Jews was still in effect and could not be revoked. So King Xerxes gave Esther and Mordecai his authority to write a new decree. This new edict empowered the Jewish people across the empire to assemble and defend themselves against anyone who might try to attack them. When the fateful day arrived, instead of being a day of destruction, it became a day of victory and deliverance. The Jews defended themselves, their enemies were defeated, and the entire plot was turned on its head. To celebrate this miraculous salvation, the festival of Purim was established, a joyous holiday still celebrated by Jewish communities around the world today. It's a time to remember how God, working through the courage of one woman, turned sorrow into gladness and mourning into a day of celebration. Esther's story is a powerful reminder that God can place ordinary people in extraordinary positions for a specific purpose. He can work through our fears, our secrets, and our courage to bring about incredible deliverance. So what can we learn from Esther today? Her story teaches us that we might face moments that demand immense courage and unwavering faith. It might feel like we are risking everything, stepping out into the unknown, just as she did. But her life shows us that God is always working, often in ways we cannot see, orchestrating events for our good and His glory. He can place you exactly where you need to be for such a time as this. So be brave, trust in Him, and remember that your life, your actions, and your voice might just be the lifeline someone else needs. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of faith and courage. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.